Hello everyone, welcome to another tier list video. I'm your host Bells from Bell's Basement. We're gonna be doing another band this time for this unscripted series of tier lists. Last time we did Green Day. This time we're gonna do basically the other pop punk band like back in 1994 that was also very popular. Maybe not in the same level as Green Day, but this is like one of the major pop punk bands, and also one of the earlier ones as well. I'm talking about the Offspring. And yeah, this is also another band that I grew up with, that I listened to a lot of their music a lot. Maybe the albums not as much. In fact, for this video, I decided to re-listen to all of the albums for good measure, except for the newest one, but I'll get to why in a sec. Basically like after like an hour. I don't know how long this video is gonna last. Probably less than the Green Day one because the Offspring have definitely less albums, so it's gonna make it, I guess, easier than shorter. But see, yeah, I re-listened to at the very least 10 of them, 10 out of 11. And we're gonna be talking about them. I have some hot takes for a few of these, but I guess you gotta keep up with me with this. Starting off with their self-title, their debut, The Offspring. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have a lot to say about this one. I think this is, I don't know, I guess in a similar vein as Green Day's debut album, 39 Smooth. It's fine. I actually prefer 39 Smooth a little bit more. Like, they're both similar in the sense that they're both like very raw, not necessarily very polished or very produced in the sense. Like, they were both bands fairly young. The songs were definitely a lot more simple, a lot more I guess basic. But not, I guess not in a bad sense. It's just kind of like, again, a band in their youth. And it's fine. I feel like the difference between this and 39 Smooth, well, first of all, I think 39 Smooth does still sound a little bit like Green Day in a way. With this album, I don't know, it feels a little bit too interchangeable with other, I guess, punk bands, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just that I feel like they haven't really formed an identity yet with this album. And I don't know, the songs, like, they can be kind of fun in the moment, but I feel like definitely a lot of the later ones, the very least the later ones from the 90s, improve on that sound greatly. And this, I don't know, it's like, again, for a debut, I think it's good. I think it definitely is a good starting point, but I don't know, compared to a lot of the other Offspring albums, even some of the albums that I think are worse have a few songs that I come back to more. This is just like from start to finish, like, just fine. I think it's an okay record. I think it's I'm gonna be putting in this C tier. It's probably like in the middle of their discography for me. It's fine. It's okay. It's like a, I don't know, like 6. Next up in their discography, we have Ignition. This is where the band definitely starts to gain a sense of identity, a sense of the sound that we know the band for. And I don't know, I think this album is generally, I think it's pretty good. I think that it is a little bit similar into their debut in the sense that it does keep a lot of the raw production, but I think the raw production is one of my favorite aspects of it. Like, it definitely keeps a lot of the raw qualities, but it also feels more refined. The energy is definitely more up there, more I don't know, persistent. At the very least, more. It hits more with me, definitely. And I don't know, I don't really have any issues with the album, honestly. Like, maybe it does fall off a little bit in the second half, but like, it never gets bad. Like, it never really gets at any point where I will have like a major problem with the album. I think the album just generally front to back very solid, and I'm just gonna say it straight up the gate. I think this album does have one song that I will consider it to be one of their best in their discography, like one of my favorite Offspring songs of all time. And one of the two Offspring songs that I will call a 10 out of 10, and that's Dirty Magic. Dirty Magic is amazing. I love that song. I think it's just not only fantastic, not only has like a really strong riff, a very just, I don't know, very that early 90s kind of like somewhat Nirvana, but also very gothic at the same time. Like it has such a good groove, such a good riff, really strong chorus as well. Like what was it? Dexter's vocals definitely just feel very, I don't know, very, they definitely carried that youthful charm to them just really well. I think everything about that song is really great. Like I think it's definitely their first ever masterpiece. And honestly, I think there's only one Offspring song that I think it's better than this one. But we'll get there when we get there. For now, I mean, I think Dirty Magic is fantastic, and I think the rest of the album, while definitely not quite as good as that song, I still think it's pretty solid. I think I'm gonna go with the B tier. I think it's a pretty good album. I like it. Next up we have Smash. This is, well, the big one. This is something that I noticed even back then when I was listening to the Offspring and Green Day a lot in that the first three albums in both of the discographies do share a lot of similar things, you know. 39 Smooth and the self-titled were like, you know, the very raw debuts where the band were just starting to find their sound but haven't really gotten quite up there. Ignition and Kerplunk is basically then improving on their sound, but also still keeping a lot of the raw aspects, like still at a fairly unpolished level. And Smash and Dookie are like the breakthrough albums, the ones where the band entered the mainstream, the ones that definitely caught the eye of the public really a lot. Dookie definitely more, but Smash was also very successful. It definitely has some classics that I think a lot of people who grew up with the 90s or grew up with pop punk or I don't know, even familiar with rock music at all will probably recognize. You know, Come Out and Play, Self-Esteem, mainly those two. But again, there's also a lot of great songs as well that I'll be talking about in a bit. But I mean, honestly, I think Smash is it's quite a great record. I think I like Dookie a little bit more, but I think that's mainly because I think Dookie is definitely, I don't know, probably. I mean, I think both albums are consistent, but I guess Dookie does manage to be a little bit more memorable. Still though, Smash is really good. I mean, aside from Self-Esteem and Come Out and Play, we got Gotta Get Away, which is probably my favorite song on the album, to be honest. Bad Habit, I mean, Bad Habit just embodies a lot of the very rebellious, very energetic, very frantic aspects of the band that I think on the earlier days definitely work a lot better just because of how much more genuine and, I don't know, I guess real it felt. I mean, aside from that, I mean, yeah, the opening track, no, I'm not talking about Time to Relax, I'm talking about like the first actual song, Nitro Energy. That one's also really fun. I like Kill Boy Powerhead, that song, really fun as well. I mean, I don't know, every song on this album, I think it's at the very least really solid, and the best songs on the album definitely are some of the Offspring's best songs. I think it's definitely a pop punk classic. Maybe not quite S tier, but I'll definitely put it at the very least in the A tier. I think it's their best album. I know it's a very mainstream opinion to say that Smash is their best album, but I mean, it is what it is. I think it definitely deserves that hype, that recognition. If anything, I think the album has been losing some attention, some relevance as of late. And I think, I don't know, people should remember how much of a good album Smash is, because I think it, at the very least, is close to the level of Dookie. It's a great album. You know, for the next album, Ixnay on the Ombre, really strong follow-up. I think Ixnay is their second best album. The reason why I don't think it's up to the same level as Smash is because, I don't know, it is a little bit more I wouldn't say forgettable, but like it's less memorable in some aspects. Like, I don't know, I feel like Smash was definitely a much more tight listened, and I guess definitely kept the balance in a lot of the things more. Like, Smash is kind of like the perfect balance between the more raw and earnest aspects of the earlier records and the more refined and polished qualities of the later stuff. It's like the perfect middle point, and I think Ixnay on the Ombre is also part of that same category as well. I just think it's a little bit less tight than Smash. Still, those Ixnay on the Ombre also has some of my favorite Offspring songs. I love All I Want, which I think is just one of the most perfect 2-minute songs, 2-minute fast-paced songs of all time. I know it's very specific, but like, it's just, All I Want is just so much fun, so much, captures all of the energy just perfectly. It's like everything that I love about the Offspring when they're very energetic. I feel like All I Want is probably the most perfect example. I think I Choose is a really underrated song. Honestly, I just like how bouncy and how, I don't know, how fun I Choose is. It definitely, every time I listen to it, I do get a lot of joy listening to it. And Gone Away, so remember when I said that there's only one Offspring song that I think is better than Dirty Magic? Well, I think Gone Away is that song. I think Gone Away is also a masterpiece. I think it's a fantastic song. And honestly, for a vocalist like Dexter, it shows a lot of like emotional strengths in his voice here. Like something that, even if you've heard the good stuff from this band, like something like Come Out and Play It or Self-Esteem, like you'll still be a little bit shocked by how emotional and strong and just hard-hitting his performance is in this song, because it definitely strikes a chord here. Like, it's definitely a very emotional and very powerful performance all around. And the instrumentation is also just really great. It packs so much heaviness to the song. Like, it feels very heavy, but also very, I don't know, again, so just very emotional. The lyrics are very heartfelt, very, I don't know, just, they definitely feel just so, again, I'm repeating myself, but I mean, it really does a fantastic job at just being emotional and all around very overwhelming, just all around. And yeah, I mean, the rest of the songs, I think they're really good. I mean, there are a few like maybe slightly forgettable cuts here and there. Like, there are some songs that, you know, I think they work well enough, but I wouldn't necessarily go back to them unless I listen to the album in full. But still, I mean, I like The Meaning of Life. I like Hard to Hate. I think that's the name of the song. I don't know. I like the second to last song. That one's really good as well. I don't know. It is definitely very solid from start to finish. Regardless, it is not as tight as Smash. Like I said before, I think Smash is definitely more tight and more, I guess, forefront with how, I don't know, how much it packs to you. But Ixnay on the Ombre definitely follows a lot of the same qualities for me. I honestly, like, at first I was thinking maybe B tier, but I'll probably put it in the A tier, like at the very least like a low A tier. It is my second favorite from them, and I think it's really good. But I think this is where the first era of the band ends for me, because the next one is Americana. And Americana, this is an interesting record to talk about. It is, honestly, I don't even know how to describe Americana. Well, actually, it is very simple. It is very easy to describe Americana. It is kind of a left turn for them, and not in the sense that, oh, they've gone completely experimental, oh, they completely changed their sound, oh, they completely, you know, went to a completely different genre. No. The Americana is it's just a straight up sellout album, like complete sellout. in like many regards. I mean, like obviously they still keep the sound that a lot of the other albums were generally doing, but I mean, a lot of the lyrics are a lot more, I don't know, simple than retarded. A lot of the vocals are a lot more shouty and in your face. A lot of the songs are just in general, very dumb. Like, it is honestly one of the dumbest mainstream albums that I can think of, because it is a really dumb album. Like, it has some really dumb songs, and I can definitely understand why someone will hate Americana, because it is honestly even straight up bad in some areas. But I really enjoyed it. When I was listening to Americana for this video, while I was listening to it front to back again, I mean, I just found a lot of it to enjoy. Like, I don't know, it's a big guilty pleasure album for me. Not only that, but like, I don't know, there's even some songs that I think are just generally good. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, Kids aren't alright. Maybe the lyrics are very surface level and don't really have much depth to it, other than, these kids that, had really good lives in the past and now they have bad lives. Oh no. I mean, what really makes up for it for me is the instrumentation. I think the instrumentation, like, just listening to the Kids aren't alright, is just, I don't know, it's really good. Like, it just sounds really good, and it makes up for the, I guess, a lot more simplistic and again kind of surface level lyrics. And I don't know, like Dexter's vocals, like even despite the ohs, like the woes that he decided to do a lot certain with this album, like for some reason they don't bother me here. Like, I feel like they somehow fit in. I don't know, I think that song is, honestly, I like it. I like that song. I like Pretty Fly for a White Guy, despite how dumb it is. I like Have You Ever is a song that I constantly just like to meme a lot, because it's just so goofy. It's just such a goofy ass song, but I love it. Even Feelings is a really bad song, to be honest. Like, it is, I guess, technically one of their worst songs in general, but it's also just, I don't know, I get a lot of ironic enjoyment out of Feelings. It is, again, just too goofy for me to hate. I think the only song that I don't really like from this album is Why Don't You Get a Job. I feel like, I don't know, a lot of the ironic enjoyment that I get from a lot of the other tracks don't really transfer over with this song, aside from maybe some goofy lyrics or some, I guess, vocals. But I don't know, I feel like the song in general is a little bit too, I don't know, I don't like it. I think it's quite bad, to be honest. Like, honestly, not one of the worst, but I don't really like it that much. Americana, like, despite it being a lot more sellouty, despite the fact that the band did lose a lot of the integrity with Americana, I still like it. I think it's, I feel like they still keep most of their charm, most of their appeal somehow with Americana. I think I'm gonna go with B tier. I like it. Next up in the tier list is Conspiracy of Want. Honestly, before listening to this album, I was gonna have very similar thoughts as Americana that I did with this album back in the day. Like, this was also a guilty pleasure of mine. An album that maybe not necessarily, I guess, good on a technical level or on a, I guess, integrity. I don't know. Like, maybe not necessarily a good album, but still an album that I really enjoy. And I don't know, like, going back to this, it is not a bad album. At the very least, it is not an album that I hate. Like, there is still plenty of it that I enjoy. In fact, this has a song that I probably like more than anything on Americana, and that's Want You Bad. Want You Bad is just, again, honestly, just such a fun song. So fast-paced, so it kind of embodies that feeling that the music video particularly portrays. Just kind of like wanting, I guess, a girl or someone in a party really bad, and so much is going on, so much there's just so much around you. I don't know, I know it sounds dumb, but like I feel like I don't know, like I feel like the simplicity of this song, like the chorus is fairly simple, and it doesn't really convey that much lyrically, but it's just such a fun song. I really enjoy listening to it. I think it does capture a lot of the early 2000s fast-paced, I don't know, a lot of that fast-paced pop punk, if that makes sense. I think it's a really fun song. I like what was it, the second song, kind of forgot the name of it, to be honest, but I like the second song a lot. I like Million Miles Away. I like One Fine Day. I think that song's fun. But I'm gonna be honest, this album is just, looking back to it, it's not as fun as Americana. It definitely feels like Americana, but I don't know, more forgettable, more underwhelming, and even a lot of the ironic enjoyment is just not as present in this album. Like, I feel like Americana was more consistently just kind of like, in a way, making fun of you. Like, it's just, Americana was like, I feel like even with the bad songs, the band was just having a lot of fun writing them. Like, they were kind of having a lot of fun just selling out. Like, Americana never felt at any point really that uninspired. While this album, in the other hand, I don't know, there is some songs here that I think are kind of forgettable looking back, like especially on the second half. Like, I think the second half, other than One Fine Day, the rest of the songs, I don't necessarily hate any of them. I just don't think they're really that memorable. I feel like Conspiracy of One definitely loses some of that charm, or at the very least some of that enjoyable aspect of Americana, but it's still not a bad album for me. I feel like I think this is like a fairly like a 6 out of 10 for me. It is again, it is a little weird to talk about because, again, it is not really an album that I think it's good. In fact, Original Prankster it's also a song that, like Why Don't You Get a Job, I never really liked. I feel like Original Prankster is like a lot of the sellout, very in-your-face attitude, but not really with the same charm as something like Pretty Fly with for a white guy. Like, Pretty Fly was just so goofy and so like I don't know, obnoxiously loud, but like in a good way. Well, the Original Prankster definitely feels more like trying to replicate the success, but like I guess in a more lame way. Like, I don't know. I never like Original Prankster. I think it's just too on the nose. It's kind of a bad song, to be honest. I think Conspiracy of One is like a C tier for me. I do like it a little bit more than their first album, just simply on the fact that I do find more to enjoy. Well, not necessarily that's the way that I'll put it, but like I think Conspiracy of One has some songs that I'll come back more to than anything from the self-titled. But it's still a C tier for me. Next up on the tier list is Splinter. This is not a very good album. I think this is the first album in their discography that I think is honestly just not very good. I think this album is like, okay, so Americana was the band definitely going to a lot more mainstream, dumbed down sound, but still keeping a lot of the appeal and charm, and a lot of the songs, despite them being really dumb, are very fun to listen to. Conspiracy of One is also like that, but more forgettable than not as memorable. And not as fun, but still keeping some of that, I guess, charm, especially with, again, Want You Bad, which is, again, really fun song. Splinter is definitely the weakest of the three albums that are very, I guess, obnoxiously sellouty, very goofy. I don't know, Splinter is just, I feel like it just misses the mark in a lot of areas for me, in the sense that, like, I don't think there's really a main problem that I have with Splinter. It's just that it just kind of hits like the lowest average out of all of the albums so far. Like, there's just not really that many good songs. In fact, I don't think there's really any good song at all. Like I think the best songs on the album, I think, are just really okay. Those being what was it? The second song on the album. Again, I forgot the name because this is only something that I realized on re-listen. I think the second song can what was it? Can Get My Head Up Around You. I think that's the name of it. I think those two songs are okay. I think the latter, Can Get My Head Around You, could have been a lot better if it had better vocals, because if there's one problem that I do have with the album actually, is Dexter's vocals. This is definitely where he started to get very annoying vocally, and not in the goofy, charming sense like Americana. No, the Dexter does get too obnoxious here. And that's not the only song. I think every song, to an extent, suffers from that. I mean, songs with like Dahui or fucking The Worst Hangover Ever. Like, The Worst Hangover Ever is really bad. There's not really even any ironic enjoyment out of that one. That one's just really bad. Kind of embarrassing, to be honest. It's not that there's really a lot of really bad tracks, because that's definitely the worst song on the album. It's just that a lot of it is just very forgettable. Like, even straight up uninspired, I will say. Like, I feel like this is just an album that just kind of threw together a lot faster than a lot of the other albums. It just kind of feels like a very forgettable point in the discography that even when it comes to ironic enjoyment, even when it comes to enjoying a lot of the songs on a purely dumb level, it doesn't even work on that level for me. It's not a god awful album. Like, there's not really, again, many awful tracks on it. It's just that a lot of it is fairly forgettable. It is, again, the first album where Dexter starts to get annoying vocally. Again, even the best songs on this album, I think, are just okay. It's not really songs that I will come back to that often. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention the lead single, Hit That. I mean, I feel about it the same way as I feel for Original Prankster and Why Don't You Get a Job. Like, a very commercial song that just doesn't really work for me. Hit That is, I mean, not only is Hit That not a very good song, it also has a really bad music video. Like, that probably the worst music video in their entire discography. Hit That has a really uncanny, ugly music video that, I mean, it's not uncanny because of an artistic decision or because it's intentionally uncanny. No, it just looks really bad. It looks really bad. Like, the music video is just really ugly, and the song itself is also just not very good. So I'm gonna be putting Splinter on the D tier. It is definitely the worst Offspring album so far. This is definitely their first dot in their discography for me. Okay, the next album on the tier list is Rise and Fall, Rage and Grace. And this is an interesting album for me because, I'm gonna be honest, I think this is definitely the most underrated album in their whole discography. I actually like it. Is it perfect? Definitely not perfect. Like, I think it definitely has a lot of problems, especially with the second half. But I also think there's just, I don't know, I still think there's more of it that I like than I dislike, to be honest. In fact, I think the first 7 tracks, I mean, maybe not track number 6, I think track number 6 is just okay. Yeah, it's called, I think, Takes Me Nowhere. I think that song is just okay, but like, when it comes to songs like Half Truths, You're Gonna Go Far Kid, Hammerhead, even, what was it, Trust in You, and even Christy, Are You Doing Okay, which is a song that a lot of people really don't like, but I'm gonna be honest, I've always liked that song. Like, when it comes to those tracks, I think the album is not only really strong, but kind of a return to form for me. Like, just kind of like the band going back to what made me like them in the first place. I mean, in a much more commercial than polished way, but at the same time not really in a way where the band is faking it or is doing it just purely out of I don't know, just making music. Like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of that Offspring essence is on those tracks that I mentioned, and I don't know, just generally the album in general. Like, even the latter half of the album, I think it's definitely weaker, but it's not really that bad. I think the second half is still just generally serviceable. It's not really as obnoxious as a lot of the obnoxious moments on Splinter, or even a lot of the very shouty, very in-your-face moments on Americana or Conspiracy of Ones. Well, for the exception is Stuff is Messed Up. Looking back to that song, that one is actually pretty bad. That's definitely the black sheep of the album for me. That song is not very good. There are definitely worse Offspring songs for me, but that is still a bad song. But that's really about it. I mean, the other songs from the second half, I think, are just, I don't know, either whatever or okay. Like Fix You is not as bad as I remember it being, because I remember Fix You being like a really boring ballad. But I don't know, looking back to it, I think I'm fine with it. Like, it's not a very memorable song, it's not a very good song, but I don't necessarily hate it. Nothing Down is also, like, again, I used to dislike that song more back then, but I don't know, it's not that bad. And again, the picks of the album are really good. Like, I mean, Half True is just a very, I don't know, has this sense of optimism, has this sense of, I don't know, kind of like a really strong opener that just kind of gives a very melancholic sound to it that, I don't know, it makes it feel, again, very optimistic, very hopeful, very, just makes me excited for more. It is a very strong note to start the album. You're gonna go Far Kid. Is, I mean, if you're familiar with the Offspring at all, if you know at the very least some songs from them, You're Gonna Go Far Kid is definitely at the very least one of those songs, because this has at the very least, as of late, as of like the past 10 years, become one of their absolutely most popular songs. It's very popular, strangely enough, with A&B videos as well. Like, I've seen that song be used a lot when it comes to A&B. In fact, I think that song is known more for A&B than it is for pop punk, funnily enough. But it's a great song. I think it's an absolute banger. It's so much fun to listen to. Like, it has just one of their most instantly punchy and exciting hooks. It feels like they just kind of unlocked a songwriting level with this song, because I don't know, it does feel different from other Offspring songs, not because of the sound or the direction, just simply that, I don't know, they found kind of a lightning strike with this song, particularly in a way that they managed to appeal to even people who are not necessarily Offspring fans. Like within their discography and within on its own, like, I don't know, it's just a really good song. I really like it. And Hammerhead is probably my favorite song on the album. I think Hammerhead is, oh man, it's so good. Like, the structure of the song, like the very heavy, very, I don't know, electrifying moments, like just the very metallic riffs, and just how frantic it can even be. It's just, I don't know, it's such a fun but also very, again, hard-hitting song. It's so good. I like Rise and Fall. I think Rise and Fall is honestly their best album since Ixnay and the Ombre. It's not necessarily a great album, because there is definitely a lot of it that is, again, not necessarily that good. Again, the second half of the album, like after Christy, Are You Doing Okay, the album does lose some steam, and there is still some bad habits carried from some of the albums, like Conspiracy of One or Splinter. Again, Stuff is Messed Up, mainly with that song. It definitely has a lot of the worst habits from the Offspring, but just generally, I think Rise and Fall is, honestly, I like it. I think it's, as a whole, even good. And I'm gonna be putting it on the B tier. Next up is Days Go By. This is I remember when I was first discovering the Offspring, Days Go By was the most recent Offspring album by that point, and I thought for a while that it was gonna be their last album because they took forever to follow it up with another album, which I'll get more into it why. But Days Go By, I mean, I don't think this album is quite as bad as Splinter. I think it's a little bit better than Splinter, but it is still pretty bad. Not only pretty bad, but like it even has some of the worst Offspring songs to date. I'll get to those in a bit. This Goodbye is weird because it's just kind of like there are some songs that are not necessarily terrible, but they definitely not. Number one, the production on Days Go By is definitely worse than any other of their albums. Days Go By just sounds very compressed, like it feels like it's packing too much, like there's just so much added to the production that it's really not needed. And honestly, even the albums starting with Americana that, you know, definitely had a much more mainstream, commercial, even sanitized sound, I will say. I mean, I don't know, they kept it at a balance. They definitely didn't really lose that much of that Offspring essence in the sound, but Days Go By definitely is pushing it to the point where it definitely ruins a lot of songs. Case in point, the Dirty Magic cover that I don't like the Dirty Magic cover. I think it's definitely a lot worse than the original. I don't think it's really that needed. And honestly, if anything, I think it just subtracts because the original, I mean, not only it's because it has such a good melody, but like a lot of the more, I don't know, raw aspects of it definitely work in its favor. Like it's just like this cover loses so much of the gothic, very, I guess, very 90s sounding sound that was definitely great about the original. And Dexter just sounds so much worse in this cover as well. Like it definitely just goes against the very raw, very gothic voice that he had in the original. That definitely fit in with the rest. In here, I mean, I don't know. It feels like he forgot what made his vocals really work in the original in the first place. But I mean, even outside of that, I mean, I was mentioning the production. I think the production is definitely the main problem because it sounds so compressed. It has so much unnecessary detail when it comes to how loud and explosive the guitars are. It's just not needed. It's just unnecessary. Like the gothic sound of the original was perfect. I feel like a lot of it being less sanitized, being less polished in a way, was definitely how it made it capture that very gothic, very, I don't know, that sound to begin with. And this cover again just feels way too overproduced for no reason. And I mean, that's not even the worst song on the album, because there are some really bad songs in here. To be fair, one of those really bad songs, I do really, it's so bad to the point where it comes around being really enjoyable, and that's Cruising California. Like, that song is awful, but goddamn, I love listening to it. Like, it's not even on a guilty pleasure sense, because like I cannot even defend it on a guilty pleasure level, because it is really bad and very embarrassing, but it still hits that so bad it's good level for me. It's just that in the sense that I listen to it, I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck were they thinking? Like what they were smoking with this shit? Like it's just so bad. It's so ridiculously bad that it makes it very entertaining to listen to. Unfortunately though, I cannot really say the same thing for OC-Cons. That one's just really bad. In fact, I will say that up to this point, it is definitely the worst Offspring song. I mean, not in their entire discography, because my least favorite Offspring song in general does come from the next album. But at the very least, up to Days Go By, I think OC-Cons is probably the worst one. That doesn't even have a lot of the ironic enjoyment from Cruising California, which again is just so ridiculously awful that I like listening to it. But okay, I will say this much about the album in that it does have some songs that not only I think are okay, but I think are even good, which puts it above Splinter, and that's particularly the last two songs, Dividing by Zero and Slim Pickings. I don't think those songs are among their best songs in general. Like there are definitely at the very least 15 to 20 Offspring songs that I do prefer, but I still think those songs are good. I think Dividing by Zero, I don't know, I cannot really pinpoint why, but like that song just works well on average. Like it is energetic, it has a good hook, the vocals are not too bad. Cause like yeah, Dexter also sounds bad in here, but not too bad in general. I don't think the vocals really are the worst aspect of the album, because even though Dexter was definitely starting to lose a lot of the, I don't know, the good aspect of his voice, it's not too egregious yet. And I don't know, Dividing by Zero is still at a fairly tolerable level when it comes to his vocals. Honestly, the only song on the album that I think I'm bothered by the vocals is Dairy Magic, the Dairy Magic reimagining. But that's really more so because it kind of contradicts the original song when it comes to vocals. But I don't know, the vocals throughout the album, aside from Dairy Magic and heck even the worst songs, like the vocals for most of the tracks on the album are not really that bad. It's still at a fairly tolerable level, and that definitely applies to Dividing by Zero and Slim Pickings. It's not too bad. And again, the instrumentation, I like the instrumentation. I like how energetic it is, and it just works. Those songs just work because I think maybe they just avoid a lot of the pitfalls that some other Offspring songs in the late era suffer from. I'm gonna be putting Days Go By in the D tier. I do think it's a bad album with some really bad lows, and I think it's mostly not very good, but it still has some things that I like about it. I still think it's a little better than Splinter. And I don't know, it's I think Days Go By is just like bad. It's like a 4 out of 10 for me. It is definitely not as bad as, well, the next album, Let the Bad Times Roll. This is a really bad album. This is the first Offspring album that I got to, be there when it was first released, because there was such a big gap between Days Go By and this album. Like 9 years they spent for this, and I think that's for mainly a lot of reasons. They dropped out of their label. Honestly, I think that's what I've heard, is that they needed to find a label to release this. I don't know, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know much of the history with this. All I know is that, I don't know, from this sound, from like listening to the music alone, it seems like they didn't even wanted to make this album in the first place, because this album to me feels like essentially a collection of leftovers or songs that they just made to fill in the runtime, because I think this album is just really lazy. It is definitely far and away the laziest album in their discography, even more so than Splinter. That at least Splinter was bothered to, write songs. Like at least Splinter doesn't have any song that was like very obviously there to fill in the runtime. This album, on the other hand, definitely has some songs that are just in because, yeah, we just gotta have an album. Like, you have a fucking In the Hall of a Mountain King reimagining here for some reason. I mean, it only goes for like a minute, but it just feels like it's being added in just cause. It doesn't have really any connection with any of the other songs in this album. And the same thing goes for the Gone Away cover. Well, not a cover. The Gone Away reimagining. Just, I don't know, just a really bad reimagining. It's a really bad, really bad imagining, because I mean, it's just nothing. It's literally just the instrumentation, like the electrifying, heavy, very hard-hitting instrumentation from the original was just replaced by a very generic piano melody. And the vocals, like the very emotional, heavy, very real vocals from the original. No, we just have now very auto-tuned, fake, plastic vocals from Dexter here. And oh yeah, remember when I said that Dexter was not yet really bad vocally in Days Go By? Well, this is the album where he gets to that point, because he sounds really bad in here. I mean, he obviously was starting to lose his voice in like the mid 2000s, but Jesus Christ, he sounds just so washed up in this album front to back. Well, except for a few songs that they recorded apparently like several years prior to the album. Because I mean, here's the thing, like it does feel like an album of leftovers, in the sense that they already had some songs that they made in like 2016, 2015. Like Coming For You was, I mean, it is on this album, but for the longest time it was just an off single that was released in 2015. Then we knew that Coming For You was just a standalone single for a while, and I think even the band, when they released that song, I don't think that was intended for an album. It's just that they included it in this album because, they had to make an album. They had to fill it in with something, so they included Coming For You for the Let the Bad Times Roll, so we can get an album. And the same thing goes for We Never Have Sex Anymore, which is, I mean, not released officially, but apparently it was leaked back in the day, like back in, I don't know, 2017, 2018, I don't know. It at the very least, even if you don't believe the story that it was leaked, I mean, you can definitely hear it on the by listening to the song, because Dexter does sound noticeably different on this song and Coming For You compared to a lot of these songs from, like, for example, the first half, like the title track, which I'll get to in a bit because Jesus Christ, like that song or the first song, or I don't know, the majority of the album really. Also, We Never Have Sex Anymore. I mean, I guess let me talk about those songs in the sense that, okay, I actually don't mind Coming For You. It's not a very good song, but I do have fun with it. Like, I don't know, it is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. It's I have a lot of guilty pleasures when it comes to the Offspring, funnily enough, but Coming For You is not even in the goofy sense. It's just that, I don't know, maybe I just really like the hook. It's just a very memorable hook, and it captures some sense of energy that it is missing in a lot of the later songs. At the very least, the 2010s and onward songs. We Never Had Sex Anymore, though, it's not a very good song. Like, I think it's a little bit overhated in the sense that it's not as bad as a lot of the other songs that I've talked about. It's not as bad as OC Guns, it's not as bad as Cruising California, it's not as bad as The Worst Hangover Ever. Heck, it's not even as bad as Feelings. Like, even though I do have ironic enjoyment on Feelings, it is still really bad, and I think that song is worse than We Never Have Sex Anymore. But it is still not very good, and it is like, I can definitely see why people particularly hate that one. I mean, what else is there to talk about this album? Because again, it just feels like a fucking collection of leftovers. Well, I can actually talk about what I think is the worst Offspring song of all time. Something that I just realized while re-listening to their discography, and that's the title track, Let the Bad Times Roll. Oh man, that song is awful. It's awful, like from the very, like the first 5 seconds and onwards. Like when you hear oh baby, let the bad times roll, whoa, it's fucking awful. It's so insufferable. So, like, it doesn't help either that Dexter at this point just sounds so washed up that he sounds unrecognizable. So like when he tries to do this very shouty, very obnoxious in your face vocal style in here, it sounds fucking terrible. It sounds embarrassing. And the instrumentation is bad. The structure of the song is bad. Everything about the song is just terrible. I hate it. It's bad. Yeah, I don't like this album. It's really bad. It's definitely the worst Offspring album for me. It just feels like an album that had to be made because the fans wanted another album, and you guys just keep saying like back in 2017, back in 2018, oh, you know, we were cooking on something, so in order to, I guess, fulfill that promise you guys been making in the late 2010s, you just had to release this collection of barely complete songs that feels less of an album and more like a collection of leftovers, because that really is what it is. I'm giving this the F tier. And lastly, for the newest, most recent Offspring album, for some reason is Supercharged. I mean, I'm even surprised that the band has released this in the first place, because Let the Bad Times Roll for me just feels like the final straw for them, in the sense that they're clearly so washed up. It's an album that had to be made because they just got to release something. It feels like, again, just very late career, very washed up, very we're done kind of album, that I'm just surprised at all that they actually made another album after that one. And I mean, why? Because this is also not a very good album. I think this album is also kind of terrible in a way. I mean, not necessarily as bad as Let the Bad Times Roll, but that's really because Let the Bad Times Roll at times was just so awful that, I mean, it is hard to go lower than stuff like, again, Let the Bad Times Roll title track, or The Gone Away reimagining, or heck, even We Never Have Sex Anymore has, again, some aspects that I can understand why people hate so much about it. This album, on the other hand, I just think it's, I mean, it is more of an album. Like, it is more complete. Like, I guess there is more effort put into this, but I mean, it's still just, I mean, the same problems that I had with Let the Bad Times Roll when it comes to how bad the vocals are, how washed up the vocals are, and how, I don't know, just washed up in general the band seems to be. It definitely carries over with this album, because every song on this album, I just think it's boring. I think the production is really rough. I think Dexter has way too much auto-tune in many of these songs, although, I mean, I guess at this point for a reason. And I mean, just so many forgettable melodies. A lot of these songs just sound the same. It's just a very forgettable album that I just don't really see its reason for it to exist, because I just don't really gain anything out of it. Like, at least Let the Bad Times Roll. Like, I do think that album is worse, but it does have some songs that I think, I guess, are more memorable. Although that's probably because they were recorded, again, several years prior to it. Supercharged is just, I don't know, it's just a very forgettable album that I'm probably not really gonna think about that often, because it's just very one ear and out the other. It's just a bunch of really bad, boring, uninspired tunes that, again, just clearly show how washed up the band is generally. I'm honestly going the F tier for this one as well. And yeah, that was the tier list. Kind of like the Green Day one, I also ended on a very sour note, but I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of honestly normal for bands to kind of slowly decline after making music for so long. Although for the Offspring, it is kind of concerning because they really are going really downhill, especially with the last few albums. But I mean, regardless, I will always have a soft spot for the band because they still made a lot of good music in the past. I have a lot of good memories with the band, and you know, I guess that's what matters at the end of the day. For the next tier list, I don't know. It will probably not be a pop punk band, it will probably be something else, but we'll have to see. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.